So I was actually trying to think about a great quote so that it's not just Peter who will be remembered from day, but I'm still struggling there. But I wasn't sure if we were able to tweet that out yet. So, but we'll think about that. So, so you heard already earlier today that there is huge interest right now across stakeholders in the U.S. Regarding real-world evidence. And we're actually at a tipping point where we're actually generating a ton of data in healthcare, and specifically around issues regarding drugs and devices. But what we lack right now is actually a policy framework and an approach so that can actually be used for actually implementing real evidence into practice and also learning from that. Right now, almost every day, and perhaps more often on July 1st when they're new interns, there are a lot of decisions that aren't supported by evidence. And there are outcomes and disparities that still exist and are not improving. And so even with these issues that have been well identified for a while, our current research system faces a number of problems. If you ask any stakeholder, it's often characterized too slow. Greg highlighted this in terms of saying more than 10 years and $2.6 billion. That's not quite cheap. And how people think of how you can actually take costs and be able to reuse it to broaden out development process and deliver greater evidence faster is a key thing, so you can answer more questions at lower costs. And then finally, actually getting to the right answers. So we're seeing really large patient groups that are becoming very vocal about, when we generate evidence, but it doesn't necessarily answer the questions that matter the most to people. So in that context, there is huge interest in terms of developing a policy framework for addressing these issues. There are already a number of things that have gone on over the last couple of years towards this, and so we've seen the House pass the 21st Century Cures Act. The Senate has its own approach that's coming out hopefully soon under the leadership of Senator Alexander. And even last week, through the Bipartisan Policy Center and others here, actually putting out again another, pushing again another message that there needs to be answers here. And so this group at Duke-Margolis Center has been addressing these issues in terms of identifying these issues and also proposing approaches for that to be really part of the national conversation and driving that. Also, we are fortunate to have an FDA that is really thinking about this, and we've heard from Commissioner Califf as well as others at the FDA that this is really important and a top programmatic priority for the next several years, which is having a national evidence development system and how to incorporate real-world evidence. So just to give you some highlights and specifics that have already happened that will continue on is through the Margolis Center, there's been expert workshops that have already started thinking about how to incorporate real-world evidence approaches in the regulatory context. How can we get that information used in the appropriate setting for FDA labeling or extending indication for drugs, and then also continuing that work to outline solutions and pathways over the next several months through the fall. And then with other experts laying out what are those questions and potential ways to address these concerns from all these different stakeholders, so we actually have a pathway and answers for patients, clinicians, and others. And all this is coming together in terms of an overarching goal to develop credible real-world evidence, good methods, and be trustworthy. And so one key theme that has come together from the Margolis Center that many stakeholders view as that this is a great convening group that everyone trusts in terms of balancing various views and actually providing perhaps a little ounce of data to policymakers so they can actually have good decisions as they go forward. I want to highlight one thing that has come together and others have talked about what can Margolis Center do that is way different than others? And so, and continue on the theme that, if we're able to bring together an ounce of evidence, that can have large implications in terms of policy impact. And through a system where we're partnering with patients, providers, payers, large health systems, in a distributed research network, we can start addressing various issues and challenges for healthcare, for biomedical innovation, and also the pathways for having faster therapies to patients. And so as part of this, it turns out that many of the people in this room have had different roles along this spectrum, from medical products to quality of care. And then adding to that is actually Duke Margolis Center for actually adding in the questions and answers regarding health policy. So this is actually a slide stolen from Janet Woodcock, who's head of CDER at FDA. And so you can see here along these different elements, we've already heard themes that touch on these areas. And just to one last comment about that is right now, literally in the next few weeks, we'll so-called open the front door of what's called PCORnet, which is a large distributed research network of about 80 health systems that has over 100 million people data in that health system. So we're generating a large foundation with people's data there, but we don't actually have the pathway to really harness it in the way we should. And so that's one of the key goals here for this. So let me turn it over to Steve next. Right.